All right. Hello, good evening, and welcome to another of our virtual events, Outdoor Swimmer members events, and absolutely delighted to have Mark Sowerby here. Mark, please give us a quick wave so everybody knows who you
Hi.
are. So this one was a bit short notice. I met Mark a couple of weeks ago. I went to see the film Don't Be Prey, of which he is obviously the star. And we got talking afterwards, and then, well, we ended up going out for a kebab at midnight, and then we had breakfast the next morning. And I just thought it would be absolutely wonderful if we could get him on one of these events. And this was the only evening he could do between all his traveling around the country, showing off his film, and before going back to Australia when the time zone makes it really, really difficult. So absolutely delighted that you could make it, Mark, and thanks for making space for us in your hectic schedule.
Of course, thank you.
And Jed, do you want to just say a few words just to say hello to everybody and uh,
Yeah, sure. So, well, I mean, firstly, thanks to all the people that have already gone to see the film. So, I know a few people that are on this list have been along. So, we've done so far, I think, a dozen screenings, and it's been really interesting to see the consistent response from people when they watch it. They all seem to land in the same area, and I think the best way I'd describe the reaction that we've seen so far, Simon, is that people are leaving the film feeling better than when they went in, and you can't really do much more than that. And then the scale of that is really seems to be dictated by their personal life experiences. So if they've been through something really bad or they've done some big swims, then it's affecting them more. If they're younger, it tends to be more of a sports doco. And the other summary I've heard from a lot of people is I came here to watch thinking I'd get a sports documentary. I got that and so many more
yeah,
layers than that.
yeah,
And
no, that definitely is true about the film.
and a few people have thrown in your little line, Simon, which is actually running a bit hard in Australia, which is hashtag it's a love story, Bengi. So he's saying it's turning it into a dodgy middle-aged love story, unfortunately. So
No, but that's so true. And we maybe talk about that at the end. A couple of other people I'd like to introduce. We've got Rowan here she's from the Outdoor Swimmer
Hi.
team. She's going to help me manage the event, keep an eye on the chat, let any latecomers in. So obviously, if you do have questions as we're going along, pop them in the chat, and Rowan will hopefully pick up on those. And then Benji Sue, can you give us a wave, please? I'm so delighted you were able to join us from Turkey. Benji features in the film, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that. And I saw Stephen Monotones. I don't know where he is at the moment. I can't see him on my screen. Stephen also absolutely essential role in open water swimming and the whole world of open water swimming generally. Um, Obviously, the person who dreamed up the idea of the Ocean Seven in the first place. So Mark wouldn't be here without Stephen. And then part of Stephen's story is told in the film as well. So we might bring you in a little bit later if that's okay, Stephen. If you're willing, I'd love to hear a few words from you. And so thanks so much for joining us from California. I know it's the time zone isn't ideal for you. And so Mark, let's go straight into. I want to talk a little bit about the title of the film.
mhm.
I mean, I don't know whether it was your choice, but the film's called "Don't Be Prey," which has a surface level meaning for anyone who's swimming. Obviously, sharks feature big in swimmers' mentality,
Yeah.
and you're doing ocean crossings where you know there are sharks present. So you've got that surface level meaning, but I have a feeling that it's a bit more than that. I think there's a subtext there around mindset, and I'm also wondering if there's a sort of metaphorical meaning behind the title, referring to perhaps your experience in your business life before you set off on this journey. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that, or whether I've read more into that than there is, or whether more has come into it after you thought of the title.
No, but it's actually been interesting just watching Tim Denyer as he started to engage with the title itself and started to apply meanings for him, Simon. So where it actually came from was we're in Hawaii and we're in the garage of Dr. Angel Yanagihira, and she's the world expert on jellyfish and she's a leading researcher in sharks as well. So quite a handy person to meet. Bengi knows all about the jellyfish, and so we got to meet her, and she told us what box jellyfish would do to us, and then she said to us, So, boys, now we need to talk about sharks. And I reckon the only person more scared of sharks in the world than me is Tim. And so we stood there, and she just laughed at us, and she said, you know, when you get out there, you're going to need to make sure that you don't put yourself in the food bucket. And the way to do that is to remember that you're a big ocean swimmer, that you belong out there. You need to keep your stroke rate consistent, keep your heart rate down, don't be prey. And the idea, of course, is to make sure that, I mean, you can have, it's not like you can stealth across the Molokai Channel and the sharks won't know you're there, but you also don't need to signal to them that you might be worth eating. And for me at that point in time, in terms of, you know, where I was at in my life, my mind just exploded, and I just grabbed onto that and thought about how the things that had happened to us, and things happen to everyone and everyone's own difficulties. I mean, no one's going to get through life without, you know, traumatic events. So I started to think about how I had reacted to the things that happened to us that were outside my control. And I realized that I'd sort of been behaving like a victim. I'd blamed everybody else, and, you know, I'd curled up in a ball and let them, you know, nearly kill me dead. So I thought from that moment onwards, I really needed to turn that around. And on that side, we then started to work really hard on our fight back, on trying to hold those people to account and try and get some justice. And it's interesting in life, once you decide not to be a victim and decide to fight back, and even though the odds might be against you, you actually already feel a lot better doing that. And then and then as I thought about it, I sort of went where you've gone, which is I started applying it to all other different parts of my life. It wasn't just don't be a victim, but it was, you know, don't be prey to lots of things, which is, and a lot of those were myself. So I've got a noisy brain. I'm sure lots of people on this Zoom call do. Where you got noisy brains, and so how do you start to control that to point it in the right direction and not let yourself spiral down? And as you know, I did spiral down in Catalina.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
even though you recognize it and you know it, and you feel like you understand what needs to be done, it's another thing actually executing the plan. And so that became really important. And then in the Molokai swim, I used that mantra to help me stay cool, because
Yeah.
I could feel twice. There were two times I was sure I had sharks next to me that had turned away from the shark shield, and one of them either came in hard or was big or both. And I hit the side of the kayak. I don't know who Bengi had on her kayak. This is Riley, this American girl, and she's like, she knew something was different. What was that? And I just said, no, it's nothing. Just kept going. I just ignored it. I just figured either it was going to get me or it wasn't. It's quite a scare. I mean, no cookie cutters for me at Molokai though, which was good.
Yeah. Okay, so there's that mental meaning as well, that don't even be prey to your own thoughts and your own thought processes.
Well,
So
yeah, I think that's probably the deeper part of it, because even when you're behaving like a victim, that's still in your own head. So the real challenge is how do you control your brain? And I do think that these channels, you know, really test your ability to control your brain. And so does the training, just doing 2 or 3 hours a day without music or anything else.
Mhm.
And so, you know, I'm a really slow learner. I must have a low IQ, because it took me 7 swims and Manhattan and the Derwent River and Rottnest before I got to a point where I felt like I, you know, had some, I wouldn't say some level of control, but a level of discipline that meant that I could manage myself better.
Yeah. Okay, so talking a little bit about the film itself. I mean, the film is quite graphic in places. When we see and Benji's who is here, and we see pictures of her. There's actual footage of when you got stung in the Molokai Channel, and then we see the pictures of the scars afterwards. And then there's also the image of the cutty shark and the damage that can do to someone. And then we also saw how much you suffered in some of the swimmers, you know, in the North Channel, sort of almost grinding to a halt with hypothermia, and the suffering that you were going through. I mean, do you think that this film, with all that graphic detail, is that going to put people off ocean swimming, or do you think it's going to make them want to do it?
Yeah. Oh no, I don't think that. Look, if people think if that puts them off doing these marathon ocean swims, they were never going to do it anyway. They're just finding an excuse. So
Mm,
it's been interesting on this. This is the wrong answer, Bengi. So this is. I mean, I think if you we've met a lot of people on this trip who have said they're going to reach out to Tim the next day and haven't done so. And I understand why. Like, it's a huge commitment. It's because you're not. It's the training is so long. It's a year or 2 years. You may not get a shot at it. There's so many variables. There's risks. Having said that, the people that Bengi and I have met in the Croatia camps and across our swims, I would say, are by far the happiest people and most comfortable people with themselves that I've ever met in any discipline I've ever been involved with. But getting to that leap, and I understand it took me quite a long time to make that leap. It's not a criticism. It took me a year to decide to do the training, then a year of training. I still nearly got it out. But once you get there and commit to it, it's a wonderful experience. I don't think that those things are going to scare people off. I think what it does is it helps them make a better choice. And so they can see what those risks are. And maybe another way to look at it, Simon, would be that we clearly aren't prey for sharks, because if we were, I'd swim 50 meters off Molokai and I get snapped straight away. Like, you'd just be gone. And so we clearly don't want to eat us. It's just that if you get the Hawaiians had this great expression. I'm not sure if Mike and Shelley said the same thing to Bengi when she was there, but they talked about mad dogs. So they think of sharks as dogs, and so they're all quite, not crazy. They like to eat and they like to run around, and Angel would talk about patting them on the nose. But then you get a mad dog that comes along and just chomps everything. Now, most of them, they said, die off early because the Darwinian solution. But if any get through, then suddenly you've got a big one around. Well, that can happen. Whereas the cookie cutter problem is that's how they hunt. So, you're fair game to cookie cutters. That's a different problem. So I think that actually, if anything, what it showed, I mean, I'm a slow swimmer and not very good. So there's this great, I think if Steve's on, I want to tell a story about Steve. So when I was talking to Steve about the Sagara Strait, and I was asking him to come on, and I said, look, Steve, if you could come and do this with me, a lot of people hadn't got across the year before. I said, my pitch to you is that if you can come on, I can get across, then you can say, well, if Mark Sowerby can get across, anybody can. And he paused for a second, he goes, I agree. I thought, that's a bit nasty, but it's also true. So I think there's this great line. I think I told you this line, Simon, but I'll tell it for the crew that are on, is the best description of this film that I have heard is from my son, my eldest son, Lachlan. And the boys got to watch the film on their own early on, an early version. And he came out of that, he was quite emotional, and he called me from his car. And I said to him, how would you describe this film? And he said, it's ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And I'm sure that is true. There's, when we meet all these people through this life, there's of course there are some Olympians and people that are that good, but there's a lot of people that just chug away like I do. And if you want to get across, you can get across. So I hope it. I haven't seen that. I mean, the most common word that we've heard from the back of the film, there's two words in England that we've heard. It's been inspirational or inspiring. And actually, the one word that we've heard a bit, which I think is a great credit to Jeff and Stephen, who made the film, is mesmerizing. Is that it flows so beautifully that they get to the end. Then they're all exhausted.
No, it's emotionally exhausting to watch the film. And I think there's, for me, there's, in the Molokai Channel, there's that anxiety level because of the jellyfish, because of the sharks. And I think that's the sort of the don't be prey, and you're swimming there and you've got those things lurking in the background. But for me, the bit that really drained me was watching you in the North Channel, the footage of you in the North Channel when you were getting slower and slower and slower. And, I know how cold it is out there. And I just, I don't want to say people where that led to, but I mean, that was the most moving bit for me when you were sort of almost grinding to a halt there.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite picture of the film is actually looking into on the boat at the end, looking into when Heidi's looking at me all concerned, and look, it's a pretty wild ride. I mean, I didn't get stung like by a jellyfish like Bengi did. I mean, I got stung, and I didn't really mind the stings actually, but I didn't get stung by a box jellyfish because that's just extraordinary pain. So I dodged a few bullets. I mean, Bengi can probably. Simon, if you want, Bengi can jump in.
No, I'd love that if Bengi
hey,
could.
Bengi, can you describe the Bengi? Pay attention.
She's distracted, I think.
Can we
bring you on? Can we bring you on a minute, because there's the one scene in the film where there's the actual footage of you swimming the Molokai Channel where you get stung, and then afterwards, I mean, and you're screaming and you're crying, and then you're sick. I mean, it's really quite graphic. And then there's the pictures afterwards of your scars. So obviously that swim was stopped for you, and in a very painful, um, emotional way. Yet you went back and you did that swim again. Can you talk a little bit about what was going through your head when you first got stung, how you felt afterwards, and then how you found the sort of the mental strength to go back and face that possibility that you might get the same outcome again?
Well, you read a lot about it, the jellyfish, the sharks, because the swimmer is like we are overthinking about it every day since the like you are counting the days till the big swim. And I knew they were there, but the funny part is I did my swim to raise awareness for them, like to marine life. But then I got stung and I I remember it was like it's terrible. The people tell you that it will go away in 20 minutes. It's not going away. Like first thing. And I remember I could bear the pain in my arm, but then it got really worse. But I can say I battled back. I wasn't the prey, Mark. I battled back. I stayed longer. I tried to do breaststroke, backstroke, like anything can keep me swimming because I couldn't feel my legs. I got stung from my arm, but it paralyzed me. It was like such a, I don't know, it's a different pain. It's definitely nothing like the thing you are reading in the books. I think many people are describing it differently. That's why it's like every people got different reactions from it. So we discuss it with Angel later, and I was thinking maybe it's the other one, the blue jellyfish. But then we see the reactions, and she said maybe it's the box jellyfish. We don't know what I got stung, but you feel like you feel the pain. But I think more painful part is you know that like you can't battle for it. It's over. And if
Yeah,
you are like me coming from Turkey, it's like it's so expensive, those swims. It's so far. You can't just go back there another day and try again. So that's the worst feeling, I think.
mm,
Like that's why I never thought that it's over. I was thinking if I can get it again there, like if I can swim again, that would be my best shot.
yeah,
But my family was afraid. My mom was there, my husband was there. Of course,
yeah,
we are not doing these swims alone. We are a team, and you need that team to be like it's terrible sometimes.
yeah. And so when you swam it the second time, did you have a sort of a high level of anxiety about being stung again, or did you somehow manage to put it aside and just focus on the swim?
I was just prepared. We brought EpiPens, pills, anything could help it. And I had to wait like 5 months till we get another day that possible to swim. I wasn't afraid. Like Mark said, we know it's there, but we are just accepting it. It's
Mm.
like I think it's about feeling the moment because some people are like lucky. Like Mark is super lucky with Jeff. Like some of my friends as well. So you never know. You can come across the any sea creature or just you can swim across it. You don't know. But I think first thing is you need to accept your fate sometimes. Be
Yeah,
prepared, but I also accept it.
yeah. Okay, no, I think that's a good point about you prepare everything you can, but you also accept that there are some things outside of your control. So that's yeah. So thanks so much, Benji, for joining us from Turkey to share that because it really is quite a shocking moment in the film when we see that footage of you.
Mm.
I know.
Steve,
Thank you, Mark.
sorry to Stephen has just written this lovely description. Okay, it's a very graphic description of what it's like to be stung by a box jellyfish. He says It's like pouring acid on an open wound, then pouring salt on it, then hitting it with a hammer, and finally lighting the wound with a match. Um, he says systematically your brain explodes with indescribable pain that paralyzes and suffocates you. Does that sound like a fair description?
Thanks, Stephen.
Mark, it
But
sounds like you had a very lucky escape.
I also want to say, like, these things happen, but also most part of the ocean swims are so much. It's so nice. I don't know. There is no word in my language to describe it. I think the feeling about you got meet to those people. We are still in touch with Mark, Jamie, Joe. Joe got us recently a big swim in Hawaii. She smashed it. You are coming across these stories, and it's really, the community is wonderful there.
Yeah. Thank you, Benji. That's really kind of you to share that with us. And Mark, so I want to touch on a more sensitive topic a little bit. So the film starts off, obviously, the story around your business, how that was collapsing around you, and how you sunk into a pit of despair, and even at times having suicidal thoughts. And so I want to talk a little bit about how you pulled yourself out of that, and was it something about the swimming, or was it something about having a new purpose, or what was it that helped you pull yourself out of that
Yeah, I mean,
out of that pit?
it's a pretty unique problem. So in the Australian context, I had a profile of sorts in business and been a founder of a company that got to about a $600 million market cap. And after 10 years, I left. The company got attacked in what's called a short selling attack. It's a listed company about just under 2 years after I left. And as part of that, then everybody piles on. So even though you're not there, you have no power, you have no control. What I discovered was that not just for me, but externally, my identity was still tied to that company, and the company was fine. But what happened, and also internally for me, I actually realized my identity was tied to the company, which I thought it wasn't. So when everything was going down and everyone's piling on, what you find is that some people step up for you. A lot of people are disappointing. Some people don't know what to do. It's all the usual stuff that everyone goes through when things are bad, and particularly if it looks bad. And Australia's media is like the UK media in the sense that once it's on, it's really game on. And so it was game on for quite a while. I couldn't do anything about it. So I just sat on the sidelines and just got shot multiple times. And so as Tim may have alluded to in the movie, I may have some control freak tendencies. So lack of control, all those things, getting slaughtered. And also we still had most of our financial wealth tied up in the shares, and they went to zero. So the company still exists, but it's private now, got taken out by someone else. So we got wiped out. So everything that was our family dream was gone. And I just didn't handle that well at all. And then I got lucky, and there's this lucky moment. I'm a really big believer in moments, and my lucky moment is that Tim Denyer came over to see us before Christmas in 2019, and he dropped in for half an hour and left 7 hours later. And by the time he realised, he's quite shocked at my condition, and he did what you'd expect him to do, Simon, as an empathetic, caring, intelligent guy. But he went to the thing that he knows the most, which is swimming, as the solution. That's the thing he could offer. He couldn't really offer anything else. And so he offered me 5 years of pain and suffering as a solution. And it was, and Heidi most certainly, Heidi's very athletic, my wife, and she, I still don't know to this day whether they lined it all up together. They won't say, so it's probably a fat yes. But once I had a purpose, and then lucky I did, because COVID hit a couple of months later. So at least I had something to train for. And so we trained, and I went to Molokai in April 2022. So, but even then we were still doing PCR tests and rat tests and all those things just to get in and get out.
Yeah.
I got COVID twice on the way in on the training. So in terms of the process then, look, it was a slow process for me. To suicidal thoughts, I don't know whether that's the right word. I did find myself on a bench. It's funny how the ocean has been the thread through everything, because I literally did sit on a bench at Burleigh Heads twice on 2 different days where I got slaughtered, and looked out and thought, I can't beat this. And it wasn't because the things that were being said and done were true. It's just that I didn't think I could ever beat them. And it wasn't. And once I decided to go after them and have a crack, even though the odds are against me, I still would rather do that. So that was important as part of the recovery. I mean, the framework of the Ocean 7 is pretty brilliant in terms of, it's long, it's awful. Every single one of them's got different surprises for you. You never know what you're quite going to get. Anything could happen at any time. I think Bengi nailed it. You learn to do all the prep, and then you accept what you get. And there's this great, you learn acceptance, and acceptance is a really important part of that grieving process. So learning that through the structure of the swimming was very powerful for me. And then the other bit was the therapy of being in my own head while I was doing those terrible 2-hour, 3-hour training sessions of Tim's, and, having to deal with it, and letting my mind run. But in that, I actually then what I found, Son, was that my brain started having higher highs and higher lows. So I was still on a bit of a roller coaster, but I was on a trend that was up. And the real turning point for me was Gibraltar.
Yeah.
It was, Bengi and Jamie and Paul Leonard. We got to meet Joe and Rob Woodhouse and a few others on the way out, but we had this crew of 4 who had never met. And we just got so lucky. I mean, we got a great day. We had a great group of people. Igor was there, Bengi's partner and our husband, and it was a magical few days that reminded me of the power of humanity on the good side, because I'd seen enough of it on the bad side. So I was very fortunate. And that's why Gibraltar, for me, every time I watch that movie, all I feel is joy.
Yeah, I think probably we should just give a little bit of context, because not everyone will realize that you swam the English Channel in 2012.
15.
And so you had swum the English Channel before all this happened. That's when you met Tim Denyer, who took you across the channel.
Yeah.
He wasn't actually your coach then, but he took you across the English Channel.
Yes.
And then Tim came out and he said, you're in a terrible place. I'm going to give you something even more terrible to do, and that's going to cure you. So,
yeah. Yeah, but that was very powerful, and Stephen's, Stephen Munatone's design of these swims, it's very clever. Like if you don't like the coal, bang, you get it twice. If you don't like jellyfish, bang, you get them twice. Like if you don't like sharks, well, you probably get them more than twice. But like everything's got something, and they're all, I don't know what Bengi thinks, but every ocean had a different feel to it. Like you get a feel for the ocean, and Bengi sort of talked briefly about, how you, sometimes around the swimming, she just loves it, and it's true. Like you get into flow, you're in 700 meters of water, it's flat, you're floating, you've done the work, and you start, you really feel like you're at one with nature. I don't know. It's so raw and powerful. And then the flip side is also the suffering, which was, strips you bare and gives you a great perspective on what pain and suffering really look like. And it does make you realize that not being able to find that parking spot is probably not that big a deal.
Actually, that is it's a slight digression from what I'd planned here, but you just touched on something there that I think the film probably overlooks a little bit, because the film, and I think for dramatic purposes, needs to focuses on the difficult aspects, the challenging aspects, and the bits where you come close to failure. But you've just mentioned the magical bits as well, and I think that's something we probably we don't talk about those as much as the bits that really test us. But those are the bits that for you now you're sort of you're really joyful about. You've just talked about Gibraltar. You've just talked about those moments where it's you just feel at one with nature and you're swimming. And is that something you think you can go out and seek, or is that something that just happens as a consequence of trying to do these difficult things?
No, it happens as a consequence. Yeah, yeah. And even like I recently did a 5K swim at Noosa Heads, which is my first 5K I'd done since doing the swims. And the first 2.5K, I felt like a complete fool floating around and swimming poorly. And then I just started to feel the ocean. And you just get a sense of it. And that's why you know when something is next to you in the water too, because you know that's not a wave. So no, I don't. I think it's something that comes with the experience. It's no different to any form of, let's call it, mastery. I got as good as I could get. I mean, my peak swim or peak swimming ability and everything was certainly Japan, but also
Yeah.
Japan I went to with no baggage as well. By the time I got to the end of Cook, I'd gone after the people and really had felt good about that. So I felt, I don't know, just ready to rock and roll. So I want to get this thing over and done with and get on to the next stage.
Yeah. Okay. Can we talk a little bit about Heidi, your wife, and the role she's played in this journey? Because that comes across. I mean, that's the bit in the review I wrote that it comes there's a really powerful love story here because you've obviously put her through a complete roller coaster of emotions with first of all stepping away from your business, spending more time at home, then all your everything that happened around that, and then saying, right, I'm going to spend the next 5 years traveling around the world, beating myself up in a swimming pool, getting stung, freezing to death, and you'll be fine with that, won't you? And she said, yeah, get on with it, and supported you all the way. I mean, I suspect there are a few more discussions around it than that. But can you talk a little bit about how you manage that as a team and as a couple? Because that's something I think that probably helped make this whole thing possible for you.
Oh, for sure. So, I mean, it's an unacceptable situation, I think, where uh, and okay, it wasn't inside my control, but it shouldn't be where your business life, because business is not that important. It shouldn't be where your business life can have such a profound effect on your own health and well-being, but also, as a consequence, your family and particularly your partner. In this case, obviously with Heidi, and we just didn't talk about it that much. Like we were literally day to day for those 2 years, and almost still day to day for the next two. And in the film, when you see with Molokai, the joy on Heidi's face when I get across, that's also joy for her because she's so relieved that I'm on the way back. Like I think Molokai's a reasonable sort of a test, and that we have some hope. And I think at that point she needed some hope. But Heidi's been our family leader. She sets the values, she sets the standard. She's done Kona Ironman a bunch of times. She's represented Australia. She's actually athletic. She's also smart, and she's got a sports scientist, so she's pretty handy to have around, and a physio. So, and she's into nutrition. So her support was incredible. She had this thing, Simon, that she called the Magic House. So Heidi would cook breakfast, and I'd come back, have recovery food. Everything was done for me. And she said, the moment if you get Japan done, said Magic House is dead. And and then it's my turn. And we do take turns. I
You broke your leg 2 weeks after Japan, and Magic House had to come back again.
It did had come back again, which was, what she thought was a really devilish thing to do. But it's Heidi's turn again now. So we've sort of ebbed and flowed over the years. Heidi had a multi-year attack at Kona Ironman, and what we learned is you can't both fit in that level of training, and so we were just ebb and flow depending. And most as we got older, that was probably dictated by injuries, but also, she really enjoyed meeting the people in this tribe. She was shocked at their self-awareness, intelligence, and their drive and commitment and ability to take pain. And she fell in love with Steve Monotonius. Tim not so much, but Steve definitely. And so we were very fortunate. And what it's done is it's left us in a position now where I think she would say the same thing, but we're more in love today than we ever have been. So, you're very lucky to find your actual soulmate, and also she makes us better. Like all of the boys in our family are trying to get to her level. She doesn't say much, but she does a lot.
It's a real special part of the film, I think, and it's not, it's not mentioned in any of the blurb or anything, but it's really nice that comes through really strongly in the film. So I've got a few questions from a few people sent in questions before we started, so I'm going to jump to
Cool.
those. It's just a handful of those, and I think Rowan might have some questions, and then there's probably some come in the chat, and then I'd like to bring Steve in if he's got time before we close as well. So you've said yourself that you're not a great swimmer, despite doing the Ocean Seven. But the person is asking, can you give some idea of how fast you swim per 100 meters? What's your steady pace over 100 meters? What's your time for 1,000 meters? And just to give
Yeah.
them an idea.
Yeah, sure. So before English Channel, I was getting down to 125s. So I was turning on a 125. I was a bit younger then. I was 44. But Tim mostly trained me on a 140 turn. So I was coming in on, when I was really fit, I was coming in pretty comfortably on a 130. He might put them down to 135s. So that was my hundreds, and we were doing lots of them, obviously. So the key thing was
That
to be.
doesn't sound slow to me, Mark.
Yeah, it's pretty slow, and
No, it's not.
so and then in the ocean, obviously one of the jokes that's coming around everywhere is that you're the only person to do the Ocean Seven without kicking. So I don't kick very much because I get cramps, and so I learned to sort of just work on keeping my feet up and doing a little flutter kick. And as Tim tells me, that's 95% of your speed comes from your upper body anyway. And then a kilometre for me, like I'm pretty consistently pumping out sort of 16 and a half, 17 minutes for the K in the ocean. I'm faster in the ocean because it gets me higher up because I'm sort of, pretty long. And the other thing is that with the exception of probably the North, I work very hard on not slowing down as much. So I'm still slowing down, but I'm not slowing down as much. So I did do the work. Like if Tim gave me whatever he told me, I did every single lap exactly as he asked. I did a lot of work on not getting injured, so I didn't have setbacks, and I did a lot of work on staying away from other humans, so I didn't get sick. So I'm not fast, and so when we did Gibraltar, I mean Bengie's fast and Jamie's fast, and Paul and I are not.
Yeah, I swam with Bengi. I know how fast she is.
Yeah, it's really,
She left me behind as well.
Yeah, when Paul and I were redlining, like we would pull up, and it was more of like a sprint for us, but it didn't feel like a channel swim as such. But her and Jamie were doing it pretty easily, and they would have done a lot faster time without Paul and I as baggage. So, so I think 10K I would do, and 10K swim I do in 2:45 pretty consistently. So nothing crazy.
Yeah, but it's definitely not slow, Mark. I think that's when you said you were slow, I thought you were some, I don't know, 130. That's solid swimming.
I tell you
Especially if you keep it up for hour after hour.
I'll tell you a really interesting stat for everyone. So if I reckon in the top 29 swimmers, so because I only looked at all of them on the way through, so I was the 29th person, obviously. So Jeff at one point asked me to add up all the times. He just wanted to know the stats. So I added up all the times, and if I added it up right, I was the sixth fastest. But if you put us in the pool, I would have been probably in the sixth slowest. And the reason for that is I didn't have a crazy blowout. And as Bengi said, it's really lucky. So I didn't have a massive blowout. I had my biggest blowout was the English Channel, which was 14:24. So that was slower than others. But
and that was before Tim was coaching you. So
yeah. So, but also, but the other thing to remember there is that the channels don't gift you an easy shot. So I went across with someone on the Cook Strait with Tim a few weeks ago, and then the guy that went out 2 days before, he did 16 hours, and that person went across in 8, and the guy that was 16 is the fastest swimmer. Like, you don't know what you're going to get. And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of this, is having to deal with that uncertainty whilst you're in the water. And, you can be cruising along, and then the currents turn against you. Everything changes.
Yeah.
Oops.
And okay, so I'm going to move you on to the next question. This I don't quite know what the exactly what the question's getting at here, but someone's asking about do you think people have a limit physically to what they do? And obviously we obviously do have limits, but do you think that we generally put ourselves close to our limits, and how do we know what those limits are? I think physical limits in terms of swimming. I mean, before you started, did you think you be able to do this, or do you think you would hit a ceiling of
Well,
what you could do?
no, look. So the English Channel taught me a lot, but so Michael Klima, who's an Olympian, had said to me the thing that he had learned as an Olympian was that wherever you thought your limits were, there was multiples more that you could give before your body would give out. It was your brain giving out before your body, and so. And I remember in the English Channel, and I was finally getting across, and I could see the bottom, and I had to sprint for the last 35 minutes, really sprint. That's the fastest that I did. And I was lifting back out of the water, and I was powering. I mean, I was destroyed, but I was powering. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, Michael's right. There is so much more there than you realize. And that was really important to know. So, when it starts to hurt, say 3 hours into a channel swim and you've got 10 or 11 hours to go, you wonder, how the hell can this be worse than this? And it can be a lot worse, but you actually can handle it. It's your body's not giving out. As long as you keep the nutrition right and you do the work and you're fit and everything else, Simon, then the only thing you've got to do is use your mind. And that was what I got really, really good at. And I remember before one of the big swims, Heidi was never a sort of a big G you up sort of person. And she said to me, you need to remember that you're, one of the better ocean swimmers on the planet right now, because you're getting these things done, even if you're not a very good swimmer. And she said, so whatever it is, your recipe, your combination is working. And the one thing that anyone can work on is their mind, but you have to be open to it. You have to be willing to learn and to accept the pain. There's a great line in the film, how long can he endure the misery of it all? And it is miserable. It is miserable. It's the suffering is extraordinary, but actually there's a limit to how bad it gets.
Okay. All right, that's interesting that you've accepted that, and then you kind of reach rock bottom, and then you say, okay, this is as bad as it's going to get, and I'll just keep going and live with this.
But you need lots of reasons to do those sorts of, if you're going to suffer that much, Simon, you sure as hell want to have more than one reason to be doing it.
I mean, that's one thing you talked about, that came across, about the layers of reasons.
Layers of reasons.
I think that,
layers and layers and layers and layers.
And layers.
And
so
they have to be meaningful.
Once one of them isn't good enough, you've got another one to fall back on.
Yes, and sometimes the thing you thought was important to you, you discover it's not, it's something else. And often it does come down to family and choices and things like that. I mean, I had this story. I like stories. I think stories are the best. So for me to try and seek justice, the thing I was worried about, Simon, is that my boys would go in for a job in Australia, and then they would say, the people interviewing would say, oh, you're Mark Sowerby's son, as a bad thing. And so the only purpose of all of this is to get to the point where they go in and they go, oh, wow, you're Mark Sowerby's son. I do not want to be a net negative for my boys.
Yeah.
It's a good reason.
Okay. Yeah. No, you shared that story before. Yeah. And so I've got one more question that someone sent in. Rowan, how much have you got in on the chat?
Hey, I've got a couple of questions from the chat, maybe 3 or 4.
Okay. So I'll just ask the last one that I've got, and then we'll move to you, and then hopefully we'll get a quick comment from Stephen, and then we'll wrap up. So we've got about 15 minutes left, Mark. So maybe try and keep this one a little bit brief. But someone has asked about how, I mean, obviously these swims are very expensive, and they've asked about financing. How do people go about funding these swims? And I think maybe a more general answer rather than a personal answer would be one way to go forward here. But I just want to one story I heard from a swimmer we had on one of these events not that long ago. She swam the Catalina Channel. She managed to raise so much funding that she made a profit from the swim. So it's not always about having your own resources. Some people are very resourceful in how they get about doing the swims. But I know, Mark, you've probably spoken to a lot of people about this. I think one of the
people on this. Yeah, one of the surprising things that when we did the English Channel swim. We were doing that for Starlight Children's Foundation to raise money. And it's really interesting seeing how engaged people can be in other people's suffering. And so we raised about $700,000 going into that swim. And then Jeff filmed it, and then we put that out and we got another 700,000. And what was interesting is when they saw the suffering and they understood it, then they gave us a lot more money. It was actually a lot of the same people just going, oh man, I'm going to double it. And so people will be engaged in your journey. One of the things I did when I was raising that money is I had a Vimeo group, and I posted every training session so they could see what I was doing. And that helped us raise the money. It's no different to raising the money for your own swims. I do think that people will engage and support you if you want to do it. You just have to honor their donation to your cause by not giving up. And I remember when I did that swim, I had the whiteboard up and had all the it's funny how it affects you. And I really felt committed and a little bit guilty about all the people that were donating all this money to help. You know, it was for charity, but it still felt bad. And we wrote up honor the donations. And in my goggles, I burst into tears. I didn't realize how much that was going to affect me. So I do think that at your local communities, I mean, it's quite an extraordinary thing to try and swim an English Channel or something else, and they will get behind you. And, you know, there's staggered payments and everything else. And if you can put some of your own money in as well, but people will back you. And it's a lot more fun knowing you're doing it with an army with you. Bring them with you.
Yeah. Thanks for that. Rowan, what have we got in the chat, please?
I'm going to start off with a really lovely question from someone called Anne, who is the daughter of a champion cyclist. Her question is, are you a natural swimmer? But she's put a bit of context into this. She says the reason she asks is because there are a lot of athletes who have a lot of talent but who achieve little, and others with little talent who achieve a lot. The ability to suffer is what separates the great athletes from the others. So I guess, you know, do you feel that you're a natural swimmer? Did you swim as a child? Is this, or is it the suffering that's made you get where you are?
No, I mean, lucky in Australia, we have such great resources and we learned to swim. So I could swim. I just wasn't a competitive swimmer. I wasn't fast enough. I mean, I could, you know, at the school carnival, I could get to the next two levels and then I'd get knocked out in the final and come sixth or something. So I wasn't terrible, but I was nowhere near as, you know, if I go swimming with Michael Klim or those guys, they're doing two laps to my one. Like, I'm not a swimmer, but I can swim. So no, there's the two things that I did was absolutely perfect trust of Tim's process, followed it to the letter. I had the discipline to apply myself every single day. And then, you know, Tim would say that he knew that I would never give up. So I would never pull myself out of the water. Now, I had that luxury in that I always had Tim on the boat. If you're a swimmer that doesn't have Tim on your boat, you've got to judge yourself when it's time to get out of the water. That's a different problem.
Yeah, we spoke about that and the trust you put in Tim, that he's going to let you go to your limit, but he's not going to let you die. That was sort of quite a line he's treading there, and the look on his face and some of the, you know, when he is like, am I pushing this man too far?
No, but I think that was our superpower as a team, is that there was no need for a margin for error. I never ever thought about, will Tim pull me out? And he never ever thought about, will Mark get out? And so then it became a very pragmatic decision based on, you know, his perception of my health and his experience. So no, I think you do learn. I wouldn't say it. What I would say to that, it's a really good question. That I had not been someone who was very good at handling pain when I was younger. I wasn't a good footballer. I could play football well enough and all those things. I wasn't tough. It's a learned skill over time. Most definitely, you can learn to manage pain and accept it, and learn to suffer. And you can learn to suffer. And learning to suffer on a multi-year basis is really interesting. Like, suffering for one day in the English Channel was one thing. Suffering on a multi-year basis and choosing to go back. You know, one of the hard things is actually knowing how bad it is and going back and doing it again. Like, you go, oh no, I remember this bit. So no, I mean, I just, you know, totally believe in the power of your mind if you can train it to get there. But I needed a lot of people to talk to and a lot of experience to get there. It wasn't natural.
Interesting answer.
What else have you got, Rowan?
So I've got a couple of nice practical questions. So the first one is, do you have any advice on how to train for night swimming?
Oh, I actually, like anything, just do it. So night swimming is a funny thing. I never really had a problem with it, but when we were doing the Croatia camps with Red Top, some people threw them right out. Like it was, their vision was gone. They were spewing their guts up. They lost almost their sense of, where they were. And so I never, I always felt like I had a good feeling for the ocean. If you really want to build your feel for the water, that's a really good way to do it. And so doing that on camps and other things with other people is great because then you feel a little bit safer. And particularly in places like Croatia where there's, great whites don't come around and do terrible things to you. So those places are good. But I'm like everything in life. I just think you've got to get experience doing it, and doing it once is not enough. But I found it, I actually naturally was fine with it. I never had an issue. I never got seasick in the water. I could get seasick on the boat, but never ever got seasick in the water. So I was very fortunate on Bengie's long list of lucky mark things.
So,
Amazing.
um,
Fab.
have
And
have
there's
you got
another
one more?
question.
Because then
Oh,
I do want
sorry.
to bring Stephen in while he's still here, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Okay, so last question. So what I would like you to do after I've asked this question as well, and after Stephen's talked, is just um somebody's asking about options for watching the film later. So maybe we could finish on that
Yeah,
after
no,
Stephen's
definitely we'll come back
spoken.
to that.
But just one last question from the audience is just how do you fit in training? How are you not prey to life's commitments?
Yes. So the best example. So I had more time for the Ocean Seven. We had other things that were going on, but I could go at different times. But I did train for the English Channel for 2 years whilst running a listed company and traveling around the world. I remember doing a 10K set in a 15-meter pool in China, and they made me wear a hairnet. So that just it's a choice. But what I would say that is surprising about it is that the productivity of your day will improve with the 2 hours of training. So you get the time back because you can think while you're swimming and you can make a lot of decisions. You can come out with better temperament and you can find your productivity can go out. So if you normally would have 30-minute meetings, cut them to 15 and you'll find that you've thought about them beforehand. The swimming is not the waste of time. It's the rest of your life that is.
That's a very good point. I'm gonna keep that line. The swimming's not the waste of time. And Stephen, I hope you've got
Yeah,
your microphone, and I would love to hear a few words from you. I'm so glad you can join us. From I think you're in California now.
yeah.
Stephen is the person who dreamed up the whole idea of the Ocean Seven. So he's the one that has put Mark and Benji through all the suffering they've been through. And Stephen, you've seen the film. How do you think it represents what when you first came up with this concept of Ocean Seven? How do you think that this film now represents what you imagined 15 years ago when you came up with the idea?
It represents it extraordinarily well. And the reason why is I see a lot of imagery, videos, etc., of marathon swimmers, channel swimmers, etc., on YouTube, Vimeo, etc. And a lot of it is showing a swimmer swimming in the open water facing oceans. We can't really tell how cold it is. And the viewer themselves, if they were an ocean swimmer themselves, if they had crossed a channel swimmer themselves, they can imagine what is happening to the protagonists in the film. This film is different because this film, you don't have to be a channel swimmer. You don't have to be an open water swimmer to get an appreciation of everything that goes on, that went on in Bengie's life and in Mark's experiences in the Ocean Seven. The story tells you graphically, by their words, by their facial expressions, etc., what they're going through. And therefore, the audience is much bigger, I felt, than a typical swimming video we see on YouTube. It tells a story, but then it actually allows the viewer to be inspired to write their own story, whether it is on dry land or in the water. And therefore, and that was one of the visions of Ocean Seven, to inspire people to do something. I actually never thought that in my lifetime I would see an Ocean Seven, the Ocean Seven completed. I I threw it out there as I do. I threw out a lot of things, and I did. Nobody's going to do this, but what the heck? We'll just put it out there. And sure enough, people from all over the world started to do it. There'll be many more in the future. And but this film captures that. It captures that it through Mark's experiences, through Mark's eyes, through his wife Heidi, through Tim, through Bengi, uh, you name it. It actually shows what they're going through, and the non-swimmer can understand it. And therefore, the non-swimmer can be inspired and set off on their own path. So I have to salute Mark, Jeff, who is the director, Steve, who is the producer, the writer, etc. They did a wonderful job, and I thank you all.
Yeah. No, thanks again so much for joining us, Stephen. And yeah, for being the original inspiration behind this whole thing. So great that you could be here for that.
Amazing.
Okay, so we've got a couple of minutes to wrap up. Mark, tell us where people can see the film over the next few weeks.
Sure, I might expand on Stephen's words a little bit. What I'm surprised about with this film is that I think it can actually do some good. It's definitely got some inspirational qualities, but I do think that it has more than that, and it can do good. And the challenge with the structure of cinema and film right now is that with streaming, it's killed off a lot of cinema. And so everything has to sort of go to streaming straight away. Well, we've decided that the more we get this film into cinema, where it's really effective, obviously, on screen, because it's the ocean and you can feel it. If you can get it on screen, the more people that see it, then the more people will tell other people to see it. And the way this business works, and we've come to the UK first, very much to honour Tim, frankly, and this market, it all started here. So we've come here first, and the idea is that the more people that see it, they'll tell other people to see it. But you've got to get through the first weekend, and there's really 2 weekends that matter. It's this weekend coming up. So we finish the Q&A tour on the 19th, and then it starts to go into cinemas around the country. And it's going into quite a few, actually. So it's going into sort of 40 or 50, 60 cinemas across the country. But if they don't fill it up or get enough people there, they'll just can it for the next week. And that's what pretty much happens to every documentary. So the only way this film gets to week 2 is by actually being watched in week 1. And in Ireland, my brother lives in Ireland, so we're going into Ireland. We're a week behind there. So it's going into Ireland on the 27th of March. And so it's a week behind in Ireland as well. And we'll be over in Belfast on the 27th to see the North Channel Crazies and the Chunky Dunkers, and then Dublin, and then it will go into screens over there. So I'm hoping it sort of just finds its own life, but I don't have any control over that. So we'll see what happens.
So you've got, how many more screenings have you got left in the UK?
Q&A, there's a few dotted around, like John T. Wannikin and Paul Leonard and Stephen Sander are all doing some around the country. There are a few of those and you can just look at the Don't Be Prey website for those. But that's actually going into commercial screens like Odeon and Light Cinemas and some big picture house ones. It's actually going in there with no support, like a normal movie, starting on the 20th. And so, and all of the distributors are saying no one goes to movies anymore. But we're finding, what we have found on this trip is that people are going, and they're all telling us they're going to tell everyone to go. But people tend to be procrastinators, and if you wait a week, it'll be gone. So what you have to do is, if you're in a local area, is grab all your local swimmers and triathletes and runners and cyclists, because Steve's right that it's all those. And in fact, what I would say is we saw a lot of what I would call middle-aged strivers, Steve. So people that are middle-aged, that are still got an engine and want to have a crack at something, and they just need to see somebody else their age doing it, and they got a bunch of them doing this. So I do think that people like Paul Leonard as an accountant at Barclays, doing the Ocean 7, and Joe as a lawyer in Abu Dhabi, and Jamie as a training manager, and Bengi in Turkey. I think those people, you can find someone to relate to.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the message is check your local cinema, see if it's there, go and see it straight away. Don't
Yep.
wait.
Look up Don't Be Pray Film as well. Like it's on there. It's on all of the screenings are on there. You've just got to organise your local groups to get there, and then it will feed itself, I think.
Okay, so that's 7 o'clock. That's our hour. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. I know you've had to squeeze this in between your mad tour of the UK. Stephen, thank you for joining us from California. Benji, thank you for joining us from Turkey. That's so good that you could join us as well. And of course, everyone who's come along. It was short notice, so I'm so pleased you could all join us tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks, Rowan. See you, Steve.